Hi, fifth graders. Hopefully you guys are doing great. Okay, so I'm going to teach you a quick lesson in mathematics, and here's our goal. So our goal is that we are going to learn how to use parentheses when we're writing multiple step equations, okay? So in your previous years, in your younger years of school, you've learned about a term called order of operations, right? And in order of operations, you've learned that anything that's in a parentheses gets done first, right? It always has to be done first. So for an example, if I had a problem and it looked like this, right? If I had a problem that looked like this, I would have to do the parentheses first, right? So my parentheses says 4 plus 2. That would mean this is 6. This is 12 divided by 6. And that means 12 divided by 6 is 2, right? Hopefully that's a review, okay? Just remember that whenever you have an equation, your parentheses, anything in a parentheses has to be done first, okay? So that's really helpful when we're writing multiple step problems, okay? Because then we know if we need to make sure something gets done first, we can do that really easily by just putting that section of the equation in parentheses, right? Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to pretend like we have a friend named Tom. And Tom goes to the store because he needs to buy some school supplies. And he ends up buying, he buys an eraser for 59 cents. And then he buys 6 pencils for 15 cents. All right, so 15 cents each, right? So 6 pencils. I'm just going to write pencils. And they're 15 cents. And he buys 1 eraser for 59 cents. Right? Okay, you can't really see that. Sorry, my head's blocking it. Okay, so if I wanted to write an equation for that, I can totally do it. Even though there's 2 steps, right? I have to find out how much he paid in total for the pencils, and then I have to add in the price of the eraser to find out how much he paid in total, okay? So what I could do is I could put 6 pencils at 15 cents each in a parenthesis, right? By writing it like this. I could write 6 multiply 0.15. True? And then 1 eraser, so plus 1 eraser at 59 cents. Okay? So now whoever sees this equation, they can say, oh, you know what? I have to do the parentheses first. So I'm going to multiply my 15 cents, and I'm going to multiply that by 6. Okay, so a quick review of multiplying decimals. Anytime you multiply decimals, step 1 is you need to make sure you write the problem down correctly. Step 2 is you ignore the decimal for right now. You just ignore it. And step 3 is you multiply like you normally would, okay? So I'm going to multiply this just like I normally would, right? So 6 times 5 is 30. So I'm going to put a 0 here. I'm going to carry my 3 up here. 6 times 1 is 6. Add that 3, that gives me 9. 6 times 0 is 0, okay? Now I'm on to step 4. Step 4 says I count the number of digits that are behind a decimal, and then I put the decimal that many places in my product, okay? So I have 2 numbers behind my decimal here, right? So I have 1 and 5, so there's 2. I have no numbers behind a decimal here, so I only have 2 numbers behind a decimal. So in my product, I have to make sure that there's 2 numbers behind a decimal. So that would mean that there's 1, 2. So there's my answer for this section, right, is going to be 90 cents. So 0.90. And then I'm going to add my 59 cents. right? Okay, so now I'm going to carry on, right? I'm not done yet. So now I have to add those two numbers together, right? So 0.90, add 0.59. When we're adding decimals, it is extremely important that you line up your decimals, okay? They have to be right on top of each other. Otherwise, you can mix up your place values and then your answer would be wrong. And we don't want to do that, right? So I'm going to add 0 plus 9, and that's going to give me a 9. 9 plus 5 is 14. So I'm going to put a 4 here, carry my 1. I'm going to carry this decimal all the way down. And then 1 plus 0 and 0 is 1. So my total answer to this equation is $1.49, okay? So let's do another one, and then I will give you an example of a story problem that you'll actually use this skill for, okay? So here we go. I have a friend, okay? I have a friend, and his name's Jay. Okay, so Jay has to go to the store and buy some school supplies as well. So Jay goes to the store, and I need to know how much he paid in total. Okay, so this is what he bought. He bought 8 book covers, okay, and each one was 90 cents. And then he bought a pen for 49 cents. Okay, so he bought 8 book covers for 90 cents. So 8 book covers, I'm just going to say BC, at 90 cents, and a pen, just one pen, at 49 cents. Okay, so my goal is I need to find out how much did he pay in total, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write my equation, and I'm going to make sure that I think about, okay, what needs to be done first. Okay, well, I know that he didn't just pay 90 cents for a book cover. He paid 90 cents for each book cover, and he bought 8 of them. So I need to multiply the 8 times 90 cents, right? So I'm going to put that in parentheses because that is the most important, right? So 8 times 0.90. And then my next step is, after I do this part, I'm going to add the cost of that pen, which was 49 cents, right? Okay, so let's go back through our steps again. If I'm multiplying decimals, step 1, I write the problem and I make sure I write it down correctly, right? So my problem is 0.90 times by 8. Okay. 0.90 multiplied by 8. So I did write the problem down correctly. Step 2 is I ignore that decimal just for the time, just for a minute, okay? I just ignore it and I multiply like normal, okay? So I'm going to multiply it just like I normally would, and that means I'm going to say 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 9 is 72, right? So I'm going to put my 2 down here. I'm going to carry my 7 up here. And then 8 times 0 is 0, but I add this 7, right? So I'm going to have a 7 here, right? And all right, now my last step, step 4, is that I count how many digits are behind a decimal in my factors, right? Or the 2 numbers that are being multiplied. So I have 2 numbers here behind a decimal, so 2 digits here, so there's 2, and no digits behind a decimal here. So that means I only have 2 numbers behind a decimal, so my product has to have 2 numbers behind the decimal, right? So I'm going to say, oh, I need to put a 1, 2 right here. So my answer for the parentheses section is going to be 7 and 20 cents, right? And then I'm going to add 49 cents. Okay? So I'm getting closer to solving my total problem, right? To solving the whole problem. Okay, so now I'm going to do this part. Just a quick review. When you're adding decimals, the most important part is that you write the problem correctly and that you line up your decimals, right? So they have to be right in line with each other. Now I'm going to add those. 0 plus 9 is 9. 2 adding 4 is 6. Bring down my decimal. It's not perfect, but here we go. And then 7 plus 0 is 7. Okay, so all together, I know that my friend Jay paid $7.69 for his school supplies that he bought. Okay, all right, let's move on to something a little bit harder. Okay, here we go. So, this is gonna be fun. Okay, so when we do story problems, we need to read the problem 3 times, right? That way, you understand what's going on in the problem and you can understand what needs to be done in order to solve it, okay? When we just read through it once, oftentimes we miss important steps or we miss important pieces of information and it tends to lead us in the wrong direction and we get the problem wrong and nobody likes that, right? So let me erase this really quickly. All right, so here's our problem, okay? We have a shopping mall, okay? So think Jordan Landing, okay? And Jordan Landing has 105 rows of parking. That sounds reasonable, don't you think? 105 rows of parking spaces. And each space has 45 rows, okay? So 105 rows and 45 spaces in each row. So if I wanted to find out how many parking spaces they had, I think that would be a multiplication problem. Yeah, I think I'm pretty solid in that part. Okay, a special permit is required to park in 630 of those spaces. So how many spaces don't require a special permit? Okay, I'm going to read that again. So Jordan Landing has 105 rows of parking, and each row has 45 spaces for parking. So 45 parking spaces in each row. A special permit is required to park in 630 of those spaces. So how many spaces do not require a special permit? Okay, one last time. Jordan Landing has 105 rows of parking spaces, and each row has 45 spaces. Okay, so 105 rows of 45 spaces each, right? And there's a special permit is required to park in 630 of those spaces. So how many of those spaces don't require a special permit? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I have a 2-step problem. I have a multiplication, right? Because I need to find out how many total spaces they have, and then I need to subtract the special permit spaces, and that will tell me how many regular spaces there are, right? So I'm going to do 105 rows, right? And there were 45 spaces in each of those rows, right? So 105 times by 45. And I'm putting that first, right? Because that is something that I have to multiply first in order to find out what the answer is, right? I have to do this first, so I'm going to put it in parentheses, okay? And then I'm going to subtract the number of special permit places, which was 630, right? Okay, so now if I were to do this, I have to do this part first, and then I do the second part after that, right? So I'm going to do place value section method. Oops, sorry, that's not a 4. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I blacked out for a second. Okay, so I'm going to multiply these, right? I have 3 zeros. 4 times 1 is 4. This is going to be a 500. This is 0. This is 0. This is 200. And this is 25. Then I add these together. And I get, okay, so that would be 4,725. And then I'm going to subtract 630. Okay, so let's do that part. I'm going to subtract out those special permit parking places because I can't park there unless I have the parking spot, and they want to know how many don't require the special permit. So 5 subtract 0 is 5. 2 subtract 3 is not possible, so I have to regroup. So 12 subtract 3 is 9, 0, and 4. So that means there's 4,095 parking spots that don't require a permit. Okay, so I'm going to assign an assignment on Google Classroom, and I just need you to do your best. Okay, I'm going to roll a dice and tell you how many problems you need to solve. Okay, so here we go. Here's my dice. Actually, let me use this one. Okay, so I rolled a 6. So you'll have to do 6 problems. You pick which ones you want to do, and we'll go from there. All right? Good luck. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.